Thankfully, technology has made a number of advances. The most important one is the fact that, as you know, Ghana is supposed to have gone digital by now. We haven't, but we will sometime early next year. Now, the digital platform is an interesting addition in the sense that it provides us with the opportunity to collect TV license fees via a decoder, and we intend to do that. But that is not the only method that we're going to use. We are already in discussion, finalizing agreement with a number of banks. We are looking at even the money transfer on mobile, what you call mobile money, and we are entering into arrangement. There are a number of software out there that can help us to collect the TV license fee technologically. So it's not going to be the old way of knocking on doors and collecting.
So you're not going to send men around to collect?
There will be compliance teams. As you know, human beings are very intelligent, and all laws you put in place, you need to follow up and check. In spite of the fact that we use a lot of technology, there will still be a few persons who have already purchased flat screen TVs, digital flat screen TVs, whose details we don't have. So we need to go around and collect those details, because we're going to work from a database, and if we don't build that database, we won't be able to do the collection.
Has that database been built already?
Thankfully, there are a lot of government organizations which have databases that will be useful to us.
How reliable are these databases?
Well, the Ghana Revenue Authority, because they are charged to collect taxes, have a very good database on commercial users. At the same time, we expect Ghana Tourism Authority, one of our fellow MDAs, to also assist us with data on commercial users in the area of entertainment businesses, hotels, restaurants, and that kind of thing. So we already have organizations that can supply us with data on commercial users. The challenge is the domestic users. And like I said, with the deployment of a digital platform, which will require that anybody who has an analog TV needs a set-top box, the set-top box will be configured in a manner to ensure that if you haven't paid your TV license fee, it might be difficult for you to see free-to-air television.
In the case of you sending some teams around, does it mean that you're going to employ more people to do that?
Not necessarily. As you know, we already have staff who can be quickly given training and moved into TV collection. It's a question of training. The training for data entry people and that kind of stuff from our finance department has started. Now we have to make an assessment of how many of these compliance teams, we call them, they are not necessarily going out to collect the license fee, but they are going out there to monitor, to supervise, to check on whether the collection is going as it should be.
And how are you going to ensure that this money, huge sums of monies you're going to collect, are accounted for?
Well, thankfully, we have a supervisory organization called the National Media Commission, which oversees all media in Ghana. And as you know, they are our parent. And therefore, there would be enough processes and to ensure that these monies are well accounted. The interesting thing about this new TV license fee is that it's not even going to support only broadcasting. It's supporting total media. The funding formula, the sharing formula, which has been agreed, it goes to GBC, it goes to GIBA, which is your organization, it goes to National Media Commission, it goes to Media Development Fund.
Beyond the NMC monitoring event, you also expect that there will be some sort of strict measures in place to ensure transparency and proper accountability.
Obviously, we are audited both internally and externally. There is an internal audit agency, Auditor General's Department. There are all kinds of auditing levels in the system which would come in and look at all these funds.
And so you are sure that there's not going to be more practices, as it were, financial malfeasance, and there will be clear accountability with these monies you're going to take?
Not under my watch, anyway.
This money, if I understand clearly, when Cabral launched this over the weekend, he said yesterday he said that it was going to help GBC raise funds to help you become an effective broadcaster.
Are you sure? You need to read the statement.
I have it in the newspaper.
No.
Well, it wasn't just GBC, but also help GBC in the
media.
Well, but he mentioned.
That's why I want to correct that mistake. There's a fixation on GBC. When I've made it quite clear that this TV license fee is not a sole GBC. Your organization, GIBA, including multimedia, is going to benefit from it.
Okay, if you say, for instance,
Media Development Fund, which will even cover print media, the media is finally going to be giving a guaranteed funding, which does not depend upon the vagaries of governance of any kind.
Don't you think that explaining this in this way seems to be like trying to hide from the real case or the truth, which is that you're talking about other media houses. These media houses have adverts that support them. So basically, it is GBC that we are talking about.
I don't think so. I think it's quite clear. The funding model has been explained. Anybody who is undertaking public service broadcasting, and there has been a realization that, you know, that when this fund was first created, GBC was a monopoly. And so obviously the funding all went to GBC because there was just no television station in Ghana except GBC in 1991. The other stations started coming on the scene in the mid-90s. Okay, since then the broadcasting environment has changed. That is the reason why the stakeholders put their heads together and said things have changed. GBC is not the sole broadcasting station in Ghana as in 1991. I concede or confess that even at 36 Ghana cedis, Ghana has the lowest TV license fee rate in the world.
So you think it's justifiable?
No, let me go further. For example, in Africa, we are the lowest. South Africa takes the equivalent of our 36 Ghana cedis is equivalent to €6.
In terms of the bid for GBC, what would you say to critics who would say that it is not about you getting a lot of money from the public, but it has to do with the organization winning itself of government's influence?
And that is exactly what this is supposed to do.
A lot of people have had issues with the kind of programming GBC has. And it goes beyond maybe you showing an Accra drama or anything of a sort that people would think is boring. Sometimes even the set makes people feel, I don't want to watch it. What is going to change with these monies that you're going to take from us?
Why are we unable to do sets, to do content like you believe should be done?
We understand you have the best equipment, at least in the country.
That is not true. Our equipment is 10 years old. And as usual, whilst multimedia can walk to a bank tomorrow and revamp its studios and buy the latest equipment, we cannot do that. We are constrained from even discussing any of these issues with a bank.
It's 20 minutes after 7, and that conversation between Beatrice Edu and the Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation also generating a lot of sideline conversations even in the studio. But let me just introduce to you my guest, and I'm going to open the phone lines. What do you think? Pay this renewed license fee or not? We understand it in different ways, but joining me in studio is Anthony Morrison, who is a consumer protection activist. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yeah. So what do you say? Pay or not pay?
Well, there's a need to pay for any service that you use, and what we need to actually be asking ourselves is the need as at this time. Is it important or it's not? Concerning the general economic condition in the country, with the salaries of workers not being changed for some time now.
But this is 36 Ghana cedis a year, really.
Yeah, don't forget that we have as a country, majority of the population are not in that position. In fact, if you look at the indices, and you realize that over 50% of the population live below certain income, and to burden them again with that amount is, well, you see, we have to pay. Once you watch TV, you have to pay. But we still believe that the money could be looked at.
So this is once you watch TV, not necessarily GBC or GTV?
Yeah, since the money is being given to, is being proportionally given to all the media houses. The private media are enjoying the benefits of it. The public media are also enjoying it. So I don't think it's only for GBC. If you look at the percentages that has been given out by the National Media Commission, you realize that it's not only going to GBC. Yeah.
Okay. But some people, because we've had reactions to this, why do you think we seem to be resisting this move?
We're not resisting. Actually, what the National Media Commission failed to do was to carry out a public education as to the need for the reintroduction of the TV license fee.
Isn't that what, you know, this whole, the announcement is supposed to do? Because this is August. It's taking effect in August.
Yeah.
It's quite some time before August.
You've got to prepare the mind of people. You need to let them know that there is a reason for us to go back and pay TV license fee. The reasons are that, well, the government is making a lot of improvements, or putting in a lot of improvements in the general broadcasting system. As you can see, we're moving from analog to digital. So government is putting in a lot of money to make sure that there's quality in terms of the pictures that we get, and also quality in terms of the programs, and other things comes on board, the technological advancements that will enable the larger broadcaster to purchase certain equipment to reach out to the rest of the country. Some areas in the country realize that they do not have good receiving signals, and that's a challenge. In the Volta region, by 12 o'clock or sometimes 11, GBC is off, and the only thing you have to watch, probably you are on other multimedia box or other digital boxes, then you can watch something else. So yes, we have to pay, but I think National Media Commission should have done a broader public consultation to educate and sensitize the public, and actually let them know the need for the reintroduction of the TV license fee. Yeah.
Now, I don't know the kind of percentage that the private media houses would be benefiting, but it looks like the mention of GTV or GBC alone is a put-off. Because, you know, then people would say, what kind of programming, what are they showing, what are they doing really, that we have to be giving them money, because we hear that they really need, you know, these license fees to boost up, you know, their own financial, whatever. But
I don't think they, to boost up, that shouldn't be the point. You know, when you take certain factors into consideration, you realize that, yes, you want educative programs for your children. You want your children to sit behind the set on Saturdays in the morning and watch very, very educative programs. There have been some very good programs on TV 10 years back that are no more. And certainly you would have wished that they are brought back. The reasons why those programs are no more is because of the funding. Now, going back, you also realize that GBC haven't been able to carry on certain duties. Probably maybe management or funding. But in general, you agree with me that if there is money and prudent management, we'll have what we want on our TV sets. So we'll have to look at the whole tax system as the TV license tax to find out the components and why certain people are paying certain tax or the figure that is being quoted. Then we can sit down and say, okay, well, why don't we look at certain factors and reduce the tax for certain tax brackets of the population. Yeah, because obviously when you are in commercial entity, you are a commercial entity, like the tourism, hotels, the dealers, and those who repairs. They are into commercial, they make money out of it. So you can look at raising the tax for them a little bit, because going to a hotel, well, it may be a luxury sometimes, it may be a need or a want or what have you, but they are benefiting from it hugely. Like someone who is in a village, comes back from the farm and wants to watch just news and maybe a can drama or any of the showcase, and at the end of the month have to pay about 30 cedis plus. You know, it's really difficult.
All right. I want us to go and listen to what other people have said when we stepped out to speak to them, and then we'll come back and see how much more we can discuss on this issue.
Condition of this light of matter, we can't have more access to watching TV.
So you think it's a good idea to bring TV licenses?
It's a good idea. It's a good idea. Yeah.
TV licenses there, it be something where it be useless, because now self where you dey inside doom so we down to where they can't take TV licenses. What program quality they show for TV top where for pay licenses? Me I go use my money go buy TV. Then no we can't talk say I for pay TV licenses. Why? Because way they give the money where I go buy the TV where they can't take me TV licenses. To me, if they come, I will never accept them say I for pay TV licenses.
About TV licenses, for me, I don't see any benefit in the TV licenses they are introducing. The reason is that I don't really know the kind of programs they are showing now on TV. Like at first, you can see that they have a lot of educative programs and even which shows much of morals. But now you only see of kissing, romance, in terms of whatever TV stations that they are having now. So for me personally, I don't see any sense in they introducing any TV licenses.
It will help the TV stations to be able to finance their operations and give it better services, I think. But I think the increase should not be too much, which is unbearable for the people too. Because already we are saddled with so many payments here and there. So I think if it's manageable, I think it's okay for the Ghanaian public. It will help us.
Use that particular money to develop the nation, I think it is good. But probably if we pay the money and at the end of the day we don't see good results, and then at the end of the day the things that we are expected the TV to give us to educate our people, education, the nation will not get it, I think it will be in vain. But if the government is going to use that money to, make things possible for the nation to grow, to educate people, I think it will be good.
As how when I'm watching TV in my room, then they will come and tell me I should pay some money or before watching the TV stations or what.
When you're watching TV in your house, they'll come and check the number of TV sets you have, and then they will.
This is a sensible nonsense, because already self, what will they watch for our TV top? Apart from HIV and gono, what will they watch? Then they go sit down and say TV license. Who will go come collect that money self?
And I go and buy 42 inches flat screen, can't put for my room inside. Then you sneak say you don't want to say I get TV or something for my room. What be that thing to? I will beg them. They for sure that what they can't do. It be old time 34 no years out there.
Okay, all right. So we've heard what other people have to say about this particular conversation. A lot of people seem to say we don't want to pay. I think it's because there's variety. And the private radio TV stations are not complaining, are they? So, well, and if the private radio stations are able to deliver on their own, then why can't GBC? Because after all, they're also doing some kind of business. They also sell airtime.
You are right, but the component of the tax element for the TV license fee is not completely for the public broadcaster. The private media will be a beneficiary of it. The National Media Commission is also a beneficiary of the tax. But there is a competition between the public broadcaster and the private broadcasters. So you have to look at the element. There are more private broadcasters now. You look at Metro, TV3, yourself, Multimedia, and TV Gold, and all the others. So there is competition in the market for advertisement, obviously, and other elements of sponsorship for your programs. So it's all these lots, the private broadcasters against the public broadcaster. But if you look at the advent or the history of TV license fee, which UK was the first country to come up with a TV license fee as a result of the need for them to secure funding for most of their programs to enhance their programs educative-wise and also quality. So if you look at the genesis, you realize that yes, there is a need for GBC to be given some sort of funding to be able to reach its goals, especially some of the programs that used to be aired on their program.
I have a perspective on some of the programs that used to be aired, but I'll come back to that with you on that.
Okay.
Let me now engage the president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, Akosi Agyeman, who unfortunately couldn't be here with us this morning, but he's joining us via phone. Good morning to you, Mr. Agyeman.
Good morning.
So, first of all, what's your understanding of what the private or independent broadcasters, the benefits from this TV license collection?
All right, thank you. And let me once again apologize for not being able to come into studio. But let me say, I think the issues are being mixed up a little bit. First, there is the issue of a law that has been passed by Parliament. And I believe that is something that we all must start discussing, because there are people who are saying, oh, why is there TV lines? Why is GIBA and GBC? GIBA and GBC don't pass laws. So the Parliament of Ghana has passed a law in December 2014 that a new TV licensing regime has to be put in place. It's the implementation that has delayed. So that is one. So we go then to the issue of how the funds that are generated from the TV licensing fee is used. Some are saying, why is GBC being funded? They are also doing commercial and all that. What we are saying is that the conversation has to move from those kind of discussions to a point where we say, okay, what kind of public service broadcaster do we want GBC to be? And so if they are properly funded through a TV licensing regime, then the commercial activities that they undertake, which is also choking out the independent broadcasters, will then be taken off the table. But as it is, because the implementation has not started, and you cannot tell them to also not do commercial activities because they are public service broadcasting, it's a bit of a problem. And so that is one aspect that I also want to put on the table. Secondly, as independent broadcasters, we are commercial broadcasters. So ideally, we don't have any role to play when it comes to public service broadcasting, so to speak. But we all know that currently about 4/5 of public information flow, whether it be from government circles, from every developmental agenda, is touched by the private broadcasters. I mean, when there was an Ebola scare, I mean, when we had all this Ebola crisis around West Africa, the independent broadcasters were called on. And indeed, we devoted a lot of airtime to support efforts of the Ministry of Health and other state institutions. When there was a cholera outbreak, it's again the independent broadcasters who were asked to help with a campaign, Clean Ghana, when it comes to national sanitation issues. And so what we are saying is that, okay, we don't mind devoting some of our airtime for the public good. But then how is it compensated? So then the ministry, NCA, NMC, GBC have agreed that, okay, if these funds are collected, we'll make part of it available to GIBA members, who will then be required to provide public service broadcasting. So it's not as if monies are being given out to private individuals to go and chop. It is more or less a buying of airtime, if I should put it that way. And so these are the conversations. But then back to GBC. If we want GBC to be truly independent and GTV to be able to stand on its feet against various interests, be it governmental, be it political, be it commercial, they need some form of funding, which is independent of these people who are seeking to control them. So if every time they will go to the Ministry of Finance with a budget for approval, then they will come back and then the minister says, I want this person on air 50 times. Sometimes it becomes a bit muddy. So if we're able to fund them outside that government, specific government control, then they will be able to stand on their own and be as independent as we all want them to be.
I have a follow-up on what percentage would be going to the independent broadcasters. But before that, what has independent broadcasters got to do with Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, really?
I think if you heard all that I said this is not necessarily money that is going into independent broadcasters as if it's free money. We have devoted a lot of public
I get it.
time,
You said it's more like buying of airtime.
Yes.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, let's look at it this way. What the issues of, for example, cocoa spraying, fertilizers, how these things are applied and all those are not commercial broadcasting. But at the end of the day, we also know that we cannot rely, given the climate that we have, we cannot rely entirely and only on GBC to fund the kind of developmental broadcasting that we need.
Yeah, I get it. I think the question I asked was what kind of percentage would come or would go to the independent broadcasters?
15%.
Currently, the conversation is 15%. But like the NMC chairman stated at the press conference, these are matters that are still being discussed because we don't want to. And if you, I just want to draw your mind back. When in 2010, the government put out the Media Development Fund, Giba and Frimpag and all those people were more or less part of the beneficiaries of the scheme. When laptops were being shared, Giba was the only body that said we are not ready to receive these laptops because it doesn't add any value to what we're doing. So we are not like going cap in hand begging for any handouts. That's not what we are doing. We don't need handouts.
But is this 15% good for us?
Given the climate, because at the end of the day, it's 15% of what that we have to engage. If everybody were to pay, if people were to pay, and it's a law, and so if the laws are properly enforced, it should be enough because we are not going to versus what GBC is doing. You know, for GBC, if they win themselves of state subvention or government subvention, they have to use it to pay their salaries, they have to use it to retool, they have to use it for all their things. In our case, it's just airtime that we are providing. We are still going commercial. We will then have to insist that GBC does not compete within the commercial space once they are collecting licenses because they are getting a chunk of it. For us, we are going to dedicate. So, for example, each TV station may say that in every given day, 30 minutes or 1 hour, we are doing the mathematics. 1 hour or whatever is dedicated to public service broadcasting. So if it's issues of, like I said, cocoa spraying, if it's issues of immunization, it's the issue of elections and all those things, we are able then to give out this one for state institutions to utilize. And that is for us where the conversation should be headed and not necessarily why is Giba being given money.
Are we involved in the enforcement of people paying as well as independent broadcasters?
No, I mean the whole secretariat sits at GBC. And indeed, per the law, this is going to, it's a GBC, it's a 1996 law that has been reenacted. And so the monies are going to sit with GBC under the supervision of NMC and the board of GBC. So we at Giba will then only go in to see the reconciliation. These are what have been collected. This is what goes into this fund, Media Development Fund, Film Fund, and whatever it is. So for me, like I said earlier, it is a law. If the law was not there and we are having conversations around it, then I'm happy to put my input. But once the Parliament of Ghana, which is the representative of everybody, every Ghanaian, has sat down and passed this law, we cannot then go back and say it should not be implemented. It has to be implemented. And once it's implemented, if at the end of the day we are not able to provide the public service airtime that we have promised, we don't demand or have to get these funds. So we will also give a formula that, okay, this is the amount of airtime on various stations, various TV stations that are going to go for the public good. And then we will look at state institutions, because there are so many areas that have not been covered because of the fact that everybody now is looking at commercial. There is no need for GBC, for example, to be showing us the English Premier League. But they have to do it because they think that they need some commercial value from programs that they show. So if we all direct their attention to being commercial, there is tourism, there is culture, so many things that we don't know. I mean, things that the generation coming up are not being shown because currently they don't have the funds to do it. Government subventions to GBC is being cut by the day. I mean, I've traveled around the country with GBC technicians throughout this DTT migration, and there are some places where you go and the whole transmission is shut off because of lack of fuel, because of lack of some components in the transmitter and all that. So all these things are matters that have to be discussed.
Yeah, but he also appreciates, you know, the point where people are coming from, particularly with. I'm saying that, do you also appreciate the issues that people are bringing up with regards to GBC? I mean, they're talking, they're programming the outputs, and if we have to be giving them more money this time around, we're worried that that cannot be accounted for properly.
Absolutely, and I believe it's a chicken and egg situation that we are dealing with now. Do we fund them before we seek the reforms, or as it is? Because as it is, the amount of money being given to them by the state or by government is not enough. And so I think it's part of that broader conversation. And I'm very happy and excited that this thing has generated the kind of interest that it has. And so it's feedback that we'll take back to the table. I mean, we are calling for another meeting with NMC, GBC next week to look at all the issues that have arisen and how we properly situate some of the issues. And so it's positive feedback, as I say. It's conversations that will help enrich the industry as a whole.
If we're looking at the BBC as an example, would we be pushing for job cuts as well? Because we know that they employ so many people.
I think the GBC also employs a lot of people, more than 1,000 people, per my understanding. So it's a lot of people who have been employed within that space. But when people mention BBC, we also have to realize that in Britain, we don't have the kind of free-to-air broadcasters. I mean, in Ghana now we have 12 free-to-air broadcasters. 21 have been licensed, as a matter of fact. And so the BBC is not crowded out the way GTV or GBC is crowded out. And so that is why a conversation around licensing may necessarily mention private broadcasters as well. But I think we have to sit with NMC and say, okay, if these funds are going to come in, how is it going to be used? It's not going to be wasted. It's something that, from what I understand, if we're able to win GBC out of government control and make sure that really kindly NMC appoints the board and NMC appoints the Director General and all that. So if we're able to do it properly, then GBC will then be able to stand on its own. Currently, they are not able to because they don't have the funds. Everything goes back, and then little matter, the internally generated funds is able to support the kind of public service. I'm talking about public service broadcasting that they should do. Yeah. So even currently, GBC charges for news coverage. People go, if you want, I mean, these things must stop. It doesn't have to be commercialized, but if we don't fund it, they will also have to survive, and that's what they're doing.
Okay. Well, I guess the conversation will continue, but for this morning, thank you so much for your time. That's Akwesi Agyeman. He's the president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association. And in, form of wrapping up, I don't know if you have something that you want to say. Yeah,
the TV license fee is a kind of a hypothecated tax system that we pay, or you can call it a ring fencing tax. If you look at it, do we want GBC to be independent? Yes. As the largest broadcaster that is able to reach the four corners of the country, yes, we want them to be very independent of the government so that they can be very, very objective with their broadcasting. Now, the other things that we also have to look at is that the covering and creation of broadcasting programs. How is it done? How is it done by the largest broadcaster? Then we also have to look at the technical and the technological advancement or development of the GBC, because I'm mentioning GBC because they are taking about 70%, 72% of the
amount that we have to pay.
Yeah. Then we're looking at the transmission network of the public broadcasting. You know, as Akwesi Ajima said, they have to charge sometimes when they are going to cover a public program. They have to charge. How is it? How do we mitigate against that? Then, above all, he made a very good point that GBC board and the National Commission, National Media Commission board will be managing the fund. This is now the time for Parliament to look at setting up the Broadcasting Council or the Broadcasting Authority to regulate the industry so that they will collect the money, be the main fund managers of the money, and make sure that it's put to judicious use. Let's ask, so which institution, apart from Parliament, that will ask GBC, how did you use the money?
They are not, so it's more like they're not accountable to any other person.
Exactly. They are going to manage the fund themselves. Now, if you look at the percentages, 4% for Media Development Fund. Which media development are we talking about? Then you have 2% going to Film Fund. Which Film Fund? The Film Fund are all integrated into the 72% of GBC elements. So if they are going to do documentaries on our very rich culture in Ghana, it's all filming. It's a Film Fund. It should be integrated in the 72. So certain elements of that is not really, really important.
Yeah.
And they have to look at it. As I said earlier on, broader consultation have to be done. They need to speak to the National Union of Ghana Students, speak to the trade unions, and speak.
Really?
Yes, it's very important because they are on campus, they watch TVs.
Okay.
Now, what are you going to do to them?
Okay, so it looks like this is broader than I thought, really,
Yes.
like more broader consultation. But I
Exactly.
appreciate your time this morning. That's Anthony Morrison, a consumer protection activist. This subject definitely generating a lot of interest, but that's where we have to end it. Up next, ladies, especially those who are unnatural. You want to have a natural hair, but it's so difficult to keep. I've got some real good tips for you up next. Please stay.